hustling, by doing the only thing I knew how to do, doors opened for me that I couldn't have otherwise imagined.
While other people are focused on impressing each other, people like me are winning on LinkedIn. Why? Because it's all about connecting.
I couldn't breathe if I wasn't an entrepreneur.
Welcome to the Startup Gambit, hosted by SHAUNA Arnott
and Devon Codrington,
and presented by Haste and Hustle. And I am so excited. This is our very first podcast, and it's my pleasure to welcome Espree Devora. One of my dearest friends and colleagues and inspirations in business. And it's really kind of, I was saying, a little bit meta that you're here because you're such a great voice in the podcast community, and you have been kind of secretly pushing me to do this.
Completely. It's about time.
Yeah, I know. And so the fact that you're our very first guest is just, it's a real honor. It's also just a pleasure. So,
I mean, we met through podcasting. We met by you being featured on the Women in Tech podcast, which is so cool.
That's right. Way back when. Yeah. I mean, it seems like just.
I should say we met IRL through podcasting. We met through Twitter. And then Twitter led to you being on the podcast, me flying to Canada and having you on the podcast, which is so exciting.
I know. That was one of my favorite podcasts to be on because I got so much email from it and response, and it was just fun to hang out. And we had a fun day running around Toronto that day.
Completely.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you for having me on your first episode. This is amazing.
Very happy to have you.
Hey there, listener. Thank you so much for being here with us on this very first episode of the Startup Gambit. Before we get into the episode, love you to take a listen to our sponsor, Meridian.
What if I'm not ready?
What if I don't have all the answers?
What if I just keep going?
What if it doesn't go as expected?
What if this setback helps me see the bigger picture?
What if I realize how far I've come?
What if I remember I'm doing the best I can with what I've got?
Today, I'm ready for what if.
Get ready for what if. Meridian, where banking feels good.
I'm going to just let you take it away for a few minutes and just tell us, I really want you to share with our audience where you came from as an entrepreneur, where you started, what led you to be an entrepreneur, some of the business ventures that you've had, and what you're doing now, and what inspires you. So
Sure. My name is Espree Devora. I'm a full-time podcaster. I've been podcasting since 2013. I have over 700 episodes. My podcast focus on tech, lifestyle, and culture. I really look to unify community through podcasting. I've produced over 400 events for the tech community, and I'm always thinking about how can I utilize my talent, my access, my experience to empower others to create spaces where they too can elevate other people, right? So I try to make it so the content that I create doesn't just help me and the person that I'm interviewing directly, but I try to do it in a way that empowers them to become creators as well that can further elevate. So, I mean, maybe in a tech term, call it like scaling empowerment or something, right? And so I'm really proud. I built the first action sports social network. So that was kind of my journey into the tech world. I got into tech with my father when I was growing up, and I was into motocross and skateboarding and all these things. I ended up building the first action sports social network before it was an easy thing to build a website. We didn't have all these tools. Startups wasn't a thing. Very exciting part of my journey that really defined me. And then later I wanted to take that talent from having a media company and apply it to really spotlighting people also building tech companies in the community. So I created We Are LA Tech in 2012, and we shot a video series called We Are LA Tech, which is to spotlight Los Angeles tech companies and talent and what they're doing in the community. Shooting 12 episodes. Unfortunately, my partner at the time didn't follow through and edit the episodes, and I was devastated. Within a year, I discovered podcasting. So I'm self-taught, taught myself how to edit audio, launched the We Are LA Tech podcast in 2014. And within a month, it was at the top of Apple, which was crazy exciting. And podcasting wasn't a thing yet. It didn't become a thing till the end of 2014. 2014. And it was just like a baby thing. At that point, it was still all the super high tech people knowing how to listen to a podcast. It wasn't so accessible in our cars, on our apps and all that. I mean, Google didn't even have, Android didn't even have a podcast player at the time. And you had to have an iPhone to listen to a podcast or to move the file onto your computer. It was an entirely different thing. And so now, like all these years later, I just find myself still defaulting to wanting to champion community. So I think it's what I said at the beginning. I think about all the ways that I could create content and spaces to help people further believe in themselves and to elevate others. I hope that's it. I kind of went all around. I hope that said it well.
No, that's great.
Yeah, so great. What I mean, just because I know you so well, I know how much you love to build community. I know that's almost really, I would say probably your original motivation was to do that.
Yeah.
Why do you think, why do you think that was, first of all, in your life? And how have you seen that change and shift? And tell us a little bit about the community that you have created.
Sure. I think that the real raw, candid answer to like, why do I default to building community? Because I don't think about it. It's just part of who I am. It's not something I'm trying to be. So I think I default to building community probably just real candidly. I'm disclaiming that like I'm about to say something a bit heavy. It's probably from my upbringing and not feeling included. And so I wanted to create spaces for people to feel seen and heard because it's derived from my own pain of not feeling seen and heard, right? And I didn't know that immediately. It wasn't like I intentionally was like, oh, I haven't felt seen and heard in my life, so I'm going to go create community. This was like after years of already doing this and not understanding super weird things like why I would exert myself to the point of exhaustion or go hours beyond to be supportive of someone, and just all these things that I do without thinking because they're so naturally me. I did some business coaching. Like I had a business coach and we together came to this like assessment like, oh, you default to doing this because of all that pain. You want to solve that pain for others because you had so much pain and that really resonated with me. So I think that is why I build community and I continue to do it. I do think it's my life's purpose to create meaningful connection. And I do it to like, I believe that I don't know if there's what happens like after this lifetime, but I just know that I want to be good. I want to be in good standing. And so I just prioritize my purpose over and beyond myself at times, but not in ways where I think it's really important to create boundaries. So what I mean, I prioritize it above myself. It's like, let's say I'm really tired or I'm sick, but I have an interview with someone coming up or I'm giving a talk. The purpose of that interview or that talk is my life's purpose. It's to champion people. It's to empower them to help others. So by not showing up during really important times when I maybe don't feel like showing up would not be serving my purpose. But there is a fine line between making sure I'm healthy and taking care of myself and serving others. But anyway, I hope that explains it.
No,
yeah.
That's amazing. And it's so funny you say that because today, it's what am I, 7 o'clock here where I am. I'm tired. I had a full day. And I thought to myself, let's just go for a walk sit down, take a minute, go for a walk around the block. And then like you get moving, change that state. And then you kind of get in the zone mentally from 100%. Your physical state change.
Yeah.
And I find that like right now, I'm just so energized, pumped to be on this podcast with both of you, of course. Right. But like you dived into a lot of things there actually. And it's interesting because I was thinking, knowing about like the motocross and stuff, I was thinking, where did this community building come from? But then at the same time, we are LA Tech. Like there are so many events. I mean, sure, I'm up in Toronto, but like I checked it out. Like there are events going. There's no way that you could have built this if you wanted to be the center. If you wanted to say, like, look, it's me. It's me, Espree. I'm the one driving. Like it has totally got a mind of its own. Like, where do you want to go next? Like from a physical locational standpoint, I know you've done some traveling. Like, what do you think about like the next place for you to kind of plant the seed and let it grow?
Totally.
Tech is already a huge blossoming masterful for us. So where are you going to go next?
No, and Devon, I totally appreciate that question. It's funny because people in the community have said the one thing that we really don't like is you never talk about that you created it ever. Like you don't bring you up at all. And they're like, I didn't even know. I've been in it for years. Didn't even know it was your thing. I thought you were just a social media person or something. And
amazing.
So I do have to get better at that in integrating myself into it all. But to answer your question directly of where does it go from here? So before I thought, okay, I'm going to do We Are LA Tech. I'm born and raised LA. And then if I want to, I saw it as a way to unify the tech community globally, and that I would then have it in different tech cities around the world to create these life experiences for people to go skydiving together, to go clay pigeon shooting together, all in the same city in the tech space. With women in tech globally, like I'm already doing global community work for women in tech. And so really it's about, the LA Tech. Do I want to create another We Are LA Tech in another city? But since then, I don't think that I do. I don't know. Like, I really just want to. It's this thing that came up for me, especially in the last few weeks, is success to me is being consistent and showing up to my purpose. I can't control the outcome. So I almost want to let go of, we're going to be this big, or I want this many followers, or this many people on my email list, or this many listeners, or whatever this many is, because that's outside of my control. But I just want to be consistent with myself and show up to my purpose, because I feel like I was the face of the audio social networking app Clubhouse. And I didn't try to become the face of Clubhouse. I was just showing up to my purpose. And then I ended up becoming the face. I didn't even know that could be a thing where I could become the face. I was like blown away. So I think something really remarkable happens when I just show up to my purpose and let life perform as it's intended to perform for me, rather than trying to make something happen. Because what I find is when I'm trying to make something happen, I get anxious, I have anxiety attacks, I get stressed out, I get depleted, I don't take care of myself, there's no self-care, there's no stepping away from the computer, and I end up giving that energy to other people, even if I don't want to, because I'm so taxed, energetically taxed. And so, yeah. So I don't know if I'll take it, or if I will, or if I won't, but right now I'm just focused on consistency. Yeah.
That's amazing. And everything you said is just resonated. Like I feel like you're saying the exact same things. Like I understand exactly where you're coming from. I have to do the same things. Self-care is important. Yeah. You can't give if your cup is empty. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I'm just in the middle of learning the consistency lesson. It's a
tough one.
Yeah. But there's so much truth in it. So I love that.
I mean, check this out, Shauna, is that if whenever we get a phone notification, psychologically, it takes us 25 minutes with every notification to recalibrate. And so that's 25 minutes of distraction to get to where you were before you had a ping or a ding or whatever, right? Totally. Now, for going on, I think close to 2 weeks now, power off my phone all day long. I have become so much more consistent and focused with my phone literally shut down, no power. Then even I had a lot of notifications off, but still a few would come through. Now with the phone, I am just like powering through, because I wake up with intention. I focus on that attention all day. And I'm like, is every step I'm taking matching how I want to show up, or am I reacting to life?
Mm-hmm. So are you going into like deep work for that periods, or do you just have back-to-back meetings? Like, or do you just work completely off email? Like, how does that even work? I feel like I would read my phone.
So I do use Google Voice if I have to make a phone call. So I do that from my computer, and it's a phone call with intent. The only person that has access to me is my mom. So she has like access to my devices, And what I do is I think about what is the priority that I have for the day. And I just go about my day making sure I tackle my priority first. I prioritize self-care. So I make sure like I'm exercising or eating well or breathing or meditate, whatever it is for that day for self-care, right? And then, and I'm asking myself, what is it that I want to get done? Like I just launched a YouTube channel, right? This is a very easy example. So I just launched a YouTube channel. You could find it it on Espree Devora on YouTube. The goal of the channel is to get everybody who watches the channel 10,000 podcast listeners a month. Like that is the arching theme is like by watching this, you'll get to your 10,000 listeners a month. And right now, I just launched. It's brand new. So I'm at, SHAUNA, I think you subscribed.
I did.
Yeah. Well, yesterday it was at 77 subscribers, right? Now, knowing that my current project, my priority is this YouTube channel, and I have the MO of I want to get everybody watching to 10,000. It means all my actions are related. Am I editing the video? Like, am I sharing my journey on social? Am I coming up with concepts? Am I studying? Like all my actions are correlating with an active project rather than my inbox notifications and Twitter and Instagram. Like I'm not on social. I'm not looking at anything except I'm working on this YouTube video and I'm doing all activities related to this YouTube video. And so I just go into my day with what are my current projects and priorities. Like the start of my day is over deliver to sponsors. So that's the very first thing I do. And it's not even deliver to sponsors. It's am I going to over deliver to sponsors today? So pretty much I wake up, I do my morning routine, and then it's over deliver to sponsors. So nothing else happens until I over deliver to sponsors. And after I over deliver to sponsors, that's when something like this YouTube thing and just like focus. And then I won't even do anything social other than self-care until like my intentions are done. Does that make sense?
That's incredible. And I think, I think that's a very advanced entrepreneurial mindset, right? And I think that's great advice for our audience who's typically, an earlier new business owner, early stage entrepreneur, because at that stage, we're so eager to just go hard. There's still a very strong, like hustle hard until you drop kind of a mentality. And people often associate that to our name, but even though we don't really believe in that. But, and just, work till you drop kind of a mentality. Whereas a more advanced entrepreneur will understand the value of self-care, the value of focusing and putting strategies in place to be productive and healthy at the same time. Yeah. So I think that's a great advice.
And some people are going to debate, I can't turn off my phone. I have kids. Agree. You can't turn off your phone with kids. Like I said, my mom, I want her to be able to reach me at all times. And you can't really rely on a computer line maybe with kids. I would literally spend the $20 to have a second phone with T-Mobile or whatever cell phone provider, or maybe use Ryan Reynolds' new Mint, phone company. It looks pretty cool. And have a second phone that's just dedicated to your family and they have access to you, and leave that phone on. And the only purpose for that phone is so your family can reach you at any time within 24/7. But why do we let our apps and everything utilize us? We should be utilizing internet and tech and social networks as the utility which they, promote to us is what that's the purpose of these things. But at the end of the day, that's not a purpose. They want us to be gamified. They want to take over our brains because that's what leads to ad revenues. That's what leads to more fundraising. They're not in the game of making sure we're healthy. So we need to make sure that we're healthy, and we need to make sure to reclaim ownership of our time.
Amazing. Two things come to mind when just thinking about that process. I just feel like you have found a way to streamline effectively. You've got laser focus. So are you seeing that this deep laser focus is just making your productivity soar through the roof? Is that going to help entrepreneurs at an early stage where they feel like they have to tackle everything and they want to be all on top of everything? Singular focus on the mission, is that working?
It's like night and day, Devon. It's totally like night and day. Before I notice, so I'll turn on my phone at very specific times, maybe every few days or something. I will notice my anxiety goes up. I'll notice my brain wants to start refreshing, the dopamine drips. And I'll notice myself feel energetically taxed within minutes. It's crazy. And then I'll have to remind myself, power off your phone. And then it's just gone. And then I ease down. And so what I notice if I don't power on the phone is I just am reclaiming my focus. I need to get very specific things done in order to be an economically sustainable company and in order to really thoughtfully market my brand. Somebody said it, yesterday, it was the co-founder of Substack. He said, I just tweeted it. He said something like, if you can't serve people if they don't know you exist. Because a lot of artists feel like we don't want to self-promote. We don't want to self-promote. And he utilized the term, there's nothing wrong with promoting yourself, like promoting, like a job, promoting yourself, right? Like if people don't know you exist, how can you serve them? So if you're coming from the right place, a place of service, of course you want to be focusing your time on being able to serve the most amount of people and making sure that they know you exist, right? Mm-hmm. And how can you serve so many people if you don't even have the energy to do so, if you don't have the processes in place, and if you aren't executing on your processes with consistency and with focus. So you're just doing more good by saying no to things. You're saying yes to other things.
I know. I'm just like, I'm literally.
I'm taking notes. Like I'm
literally like, I can't even explain to you how much I agree with what you're saying. Like I just like, it's like literally rolling through my head. Like, how can I implement this a little bit better? So that's great, and I love this for our audience. I truly do, because I just think that this is exactly what new business owners need, and I think that there's just. I know for myself, there was just such a lack and still is such a lack of process. And, that's one thing I love about Devon, is he actually brings to our partnership such consistency and such process. And I love that, because he
thank you, Shauna.
Yeah, he tames my creativity.
My OCD comes to good use.
yeah, exactly. So, but I'm really seeing the value of that, and then therefore trying to implement it even more in my own life. So I just, as you were speaking, I was just kind of like jaw drop kind of thing. So I was silent there. So anyway, really, really good. Well, I would love to shift gears just a little bit, because I really want to, we are here to inspire, but also to provide tactical support. And because you just started this new YouTube channel, I think it's so great. I'd love to just start to look at ways that you can provide advice to new business owners who are looking to start a podcast, and some of the recommendations that you might have to help them get started. And
Yeah, well, I feel accountability is huge. So this YouTube channel I'm creating, I'm a part of a program called Creator Now. It was developed by Eric, who's a YouTuber who went from legit 0 listeners to over 1 million in a year, all in 2020. And so he created this accountability group. And he limits it to 300 people so we could all support one another. So it's a 6-week program. And like, I have accountability. So I think in starting your new podcast or business or whatever you're starting, it's asking yourself, what kind of personality type do you have? And what resources and people do you need into place in order to be able to execute on your dreams? And so my personality type, I think it's called the obliger, needs accountability. There's four personality types. I'm probably going to butcher them. They're by Gretchen Rubin, I believe. And it's like obliger, rebel, something and something. I don't remember, because I'm an obliger and a rebel. So that was like really sad with me. But check out Google Gretchen Rubin, and you'll see like a free quiz to see what personality type you are. So the obliger for sure needs accountability. So like I even created a private group for podcasters to hold one another accountable. I just think that that's the first thing that you should do, is find what are the things that you're putting in place to ensure your success. Understand your why. Understand why are you going after what you're going after. Like if you're money motivated, fine. Like whatever you are, I'm not money motivated, I'm people motivated, but whatever it is you're after, be really clear on your why. And then are you meeting the metrics of success for your personal why? Then what is the why for people interacting, your future customers, your future listeners? Like what's their why? Why should they care? How are you truly creating an impact in their life? So even if you're money motivated, why does that potential customer want to give you their money? Like What are you doing for their life? Then, are you asking yourself regularly, how can I deliver extraordinary customer experience? And not just with your customers, but with your team, with your vendors, with every email you respond to, even when you're tired. So I'll utilize different tools like Loom, and I'll create a video response. There's also different tools. I think it's called Handy Written or Handwrite with a Y or something like that, where you can send handwritten cards to people you interact with. There's so many creative ways to get really to over deliver on customer experience, response time, all sorts of ways you could over deliver on customer experience. So ask yourself, how can you over deliver on customer experience through and through? How can you map out the processes that go into operating your business? There's a great SOP program. I think it's called Pneumatic. Oh, I wish I had it up. I had it up before, but I don't want to take us away from the podcast. But I'm sure you guys will include it in the show notes. Yep, but write out your processes. So a couple ways to write out your processes is there's a tool called Scalpel, which is a Mac and a Windows tool that goes on your computer. Amazing for brainstorming. There's a tool called MindMeister, which is great for mind mapping. There's a tool called Workflowy where you can move bullet points around. And then this Pneumatic to write out workflows and standard operating procedures. You want to have your processes on lock because it's going to make your life so much easier, right? And so what is the process to when I do a podcast interview, right? On one of my shows. Okay, so I book the guest. What do I use to book the guest? I use Calendly to handle booking. How do I find the guest in the first place? What's the process there? Then I book the guest. I send them a link to my Calendly. They book. Now, in between, does that go to my team? Are they notified of who's booked? Did I have questions asking for their social media handles to make that easier? Do I have a place to have a high-res version of their picture to share on social in an automated way to make that easier, right? The next step, they're booked for the process. How do we share them on social? What is our process for that? Now they're on our interview. I show up to the interview. What's the recording link that I use? How do they show up? And then after they show up for the interview, I do the interview. What happens after the interview? Do we do something on social? Does it go to an editing team? A couple great editing companies. Use Hatch.fm, amazing unlimited editing. Swell Podcasting, amazing editing service, right? If you want video editing, there's Video Mako if it's not audio, right? So how do I get it edited, right? Then after you get it edited, how do you create the promo? There's a great company called Headliner.app that I use to create my video trailers. So to record remote interviews, you could use Zoom, like we're on Zoom now. You could use Squadcast, which is great, squadcast.fm for high quality remote recording, right? So you know what you're using to record. You know what you're using to get it edited. And now marketing and distribution. Okay, what is the marketing? Are you using a tool called Lately to market? Are you using Pueblo to market? Like how is it? There's another one called Referromatic, which empowers podcasters to have word of mouth marketing, right? So what are your different strategies post the interview? And then it goes on and on. But the point is, I just listed out a bunch of things. I hope you guys are all taking voracious notes on what I just shared, all the listeners. But yeah, I know Devon is taking notes, but all the listeners are taking notes too.
You're also so great at this because you tweet out so many of these sources on a regular basis. That's
it's true.
I've discovered so many programs just from keeping.
Oh, thank you.
It's great. No, it's really great.
But you see, the point is to have your process, all that stuff I shared, even if you're taking notes, which is great, you want to take those notes and then you want to create a process map for yourself, because just knowing that information will not speed up your efficiency. What will speed up your efficiency is to have the process entirely written out. So every time you are just showing up to the process, you are not trying to reinvent it every time. Like exercise, right? We don't exercise because we don't have a habit in place to exercise. But if you were just simplifying your exercise routine and just showing up to the process, now some certain elements of the process you're not going to like doing the dishes, right? So how do I do the dishes? I'm like, that's my time to watch YouTube videos, right?
I do that too. It's awesome.
Right? Exercise. I haven't really been in the mood to exercise lately. So I started telling myself, in the morning, you're going to listen to music for 15 minutes. You just happen to be on the stair climber at the same time, So it's like, are you cool listening to music for 15 minutes? I'm like, yeah, I could fucking listen to to curse. Yeah, I could listen to Pandora for 15 minutes, right? But then I am putting on and maybe I'm putting out my exercise clothes the night before. So habits and processes are cousins, and you really want to think about how do you simplify everything so you're not overworking and overexerting yourself. You're just showing up to the process, and then everything's being done efficiently and without distraction.
So I think, first of all, it was amazing. I think a lot of us, we have these routines that we follow without even thinking about it sometimes. So what was it that snapped you out of it to start evaluating what you were doing? How did that happen? Because I know that, I do a certain thing, and then small tweak makes it that much better, or even writing it down lets me know, and really I'm doing what I've already done. So is there something you listed a ton of programs, but is there something you do personally for keeping yourself on track, a tool or a tactic that
Oura Ring? I always have my Oura Ring on. And so I know how many calories I'm burning in a day. I know how many hours I'm sleeping. I know my heart rate. I know all these things. So if my priority and something I want for myself is I want a healthy body and a healthy mind, right? If that's on my top list of things. And for me, I wrote down what I want out of 2021 in my planner. I have something called Spark Planner, and it was developed by an engineer. And so the first thing you do is you write down your goals for the year. And every single week, part of the Spark Planner is to look back at the beginning and see your yearly goal. And so I know what my yearly goals are, right? And one of them is to have a really healthy body and mind. So if I am actively not having a healthy body and mind because of the pint of ice cream that tastes absolutely delicious and all these other things, right? I am not giving myself what I want. I want to help, so it's not about restricting myself from the ice cream. It's about giving myself to the things that I want, and how can I set up a very simple way for my dreams to become reality? Because as we all are, I'm human, distressed. I don't feel like working out. So how can I architect my life to make it easy and simple and no big deal to show up for myself? Yeah.
That's great.
Awesome.
Yeah. Do you, have you been using that Spark Planner for a long time?
A few years, and it's on and off, we're human. I think that's the biggest thing about these business interviews is I'm going to change, both of you are going to change. It's just a moment in time that we're capturing, and I think we get lost in the Tim Ferriss 4-hour work week tips and think that Tim Ferriss is applying them forever and never makes a mistake. But we're human, right? And so, yes, I've been using Spark Planner for several years. And then there's been 6 months here and there where I'm not using it. And then I feel like I'm off track. And I'm like, well, what really worked when I was on track? And it was well, when I was writing in this planner, I was a lot more efficient. And I really understood that how I was getting things done. It's well, let me go back to what's been working for me.
Yeah, I think the key is we just got to always offer ourselves some sort of forgiveness, because, consistency is what we're all striving for. But from time to time, we stray, and that's okay. It's part of being human, for sure.
100%. Yeah.
Well, I always love that your moniker was the girl that gets it done.
Yeah.
And knowing you the way I do, I definitely see that that's exactly true for you. And so one thing that I was wondering is, do you get caught off guard when you are working with people who aren't as highly productive as you are?
Yes, it's very frustrating for me. I had this conversation with Jason Fried in a Clubhouse room. He's the founder of Basecamp, or co-founder of Basecamp. And I said, do you get irritated when things aren't getting done the way that you want them to get done? And he said, yeah, I'm human. Of course, but you have to understand what are the things that are important versus what are the things that can be let go. And there's something else that I learned from a mentor a while ago is how am I contributing to the consequence? And typically, if something's not getting done, it's not usually the other person, it's usually the process or communication that has an error. So first ask yourself, how have you contributed to the consequence of the outcome if you don't like the outcome? And even if you do like the outcome, what did you contribute to get the good outcome? And then if you're quick to blame someone else, ask yourself first, as a founder or as a manager, can this process be improved, or can the communication be improved? For example, this morning on our team call, and this has been going on for months, I am fanatical about James Clear, an author who wrote a book called Atomic Habits. And I love his brand. I love his Instagram. I love the information he puts out there. I love his processes. Like, it's so sexy. And so, so I've been telling my whole team, I was like, I wanted James Clear our social. I wanted James Clear our social because he has a really great social platforms that are really meaningful and useful to the viewers. And today on my call, my intern said, but James Clear is so different. I don't really get what you're saying. His brand is like white and plain and and minimalistic. I'm like, that's where the bump was. When I say I want to James Clear our social, what I'm saying is I want the value to be very clear, what the purpose of the social account is. I want there to be a process behind it. I want it to be systematized in a meaningful way. And I want it to have really rich engagement. What my intern heard was, you want a minimalistic look that's all white and very plain, and that's not your brand. So you see how I'm like, why aren't we James Clearing the social? I have said it 50,000 times. Meanwhile, what I'm communicating is not being heard.
Right. That's so interesting. It's so true. And I see that happening between my team all the time. I mean, it's just a matter of really defining that out. So I love that.
Yeah.
And yes, I love James Clear too. One of my favorite.
Shout out to
James.
James.
The book is right there in the background.
Nice.
Like, I know.
It wasn't planned.
I know. Yeah, I know.
You really show it's like you really have to ask that question sometimes, you know, like what is it that I'm trying to do? And sometimes if it's not clear, no pun, like that question can clarify a lot of things. So I guess that goes back to the process. It's great.
It's also, sorry, you guys, like think about it when you're creating content, which we all have to do now. There used to be this saying, like, every company is a media company, and that used to be new and novel to think about your company as a media company. And now years later, it's like, it's no joke. Every company needs to be a media company, and how we utilize social. And so think about like how you're utilizing when you're creating content, how you're utilizing your time, and don't get lost in like, how many followers do I have, or how many visits am I getting, or how many people are tuning into my live stream. Think about that time. How can you create the most ROI out of that time? And sometimes it has nothing to do with how many attendees are coming. Value the 20 people that show up, or even the 5 people or the 1 person, but understand you could utilize that content, that live stream, and repurpose it into clips for social. You can transcribe it into transcripts, into like putting little like text posts. You can do a lot of things with exerting your time one time. So I think a lot of people forget when they're showing up to something, they forget it's not just how many people are showing up in that particular moment. It's what else can I do with this? If you're doing an Instagram post, how else can you utilize that Instagram post? Can you use it as like an embed on your website so you have more graphics on your website? Like what are all the ways you could utilize the particular hour that you spent on XYZ and utilize it in other ways so it's leveraged?
That's some great advice too. I think I know we're always looking to do the same. You know, even just this. You know, we've got this as a video, we've got this as a podcast, we've got it going out on Reels, we've got it, little clips of it. You know, like, and I actually learned that from Gary Vee when I was in his office one time, because we were doing an interview, and he like starts yelling for his people, not in a mean way, just getting them, come in here, you come in there, and he's like, okay, I want you to cut this into Instagram stories, and I want you to do this, and he was just sort of like letting everyone know, like the content we were creating was going to be disseminated across, you know, all these different platforms. And I was like, and I remember thinking, well, it's easy for you to do it, you know, you got this team to just execute on it. But the reality is that it's not that hard once you have that one really solid piece of content to really, you know, use it for more than one thing. So, and
there's a great tool, I think it's called Kamua. I'm sure you guys will include it in the show notes. I'll send you a link, and it repurposes your content into TikTok, Instagram, and all the things really easy and makes it really great. So cool. There's also Lately, lately.ai, I think it is, which is a social media repurposing tool. There's some really great tools out there to repurpose content in a meaningful way. There's also a tool called, I think, conversion.ai and anyword.com, which is an AI copywriter. So there's now with the technology that we have access to, there's just so many more fluid ways. But if you don't write down your process, you can't write down like the software that you will use to delegate things because you're just doing it off the top of your head and rushing around and and checking all the pings, the notification, and then refresh and then DM and then you know? So a process like slows things down and makes it more intentional in order to speed things up.
I love that. It's funny because I think we started this podcast really wanting to kind of get into the nitty gritty of, how to build out a podcast at an early stage. And we've also delved into the whole world of processes and systems and becoming productive and all those things. All such valuable information. And I just love how passionately you speak about it and how effortlessly you speak about it. It's mesmerizing to listen to. I think that's why we get a little bit like, so
thank you for the love. I appreciate all the love.
Yeah, no worries. So yeah, I am so grateful that you were here today and that you just imparted this like ton of wisdom onto this podcast and into my community. And we will share a link to all those different softwares that you mentioned in the show notes and in the notes below this. And so yeah, thank you. Before we go, just maybe run through all the different ways that people can, follow you and
sure.
keep in touch.
Yeah, you could email me at espree@hey.com. That's ESPREE@HEY.com. And I'm on social at Espree Devora on Twitter, on Instagram. You can find me anywhere at Espree Devora. On Clubhouse, I'm at Espree. And feel free to ask me any questions about your podcasting journey. Like I said, I have that private accountability group. So if you're interested in discovering more about that, just shoot me a DM and I'll give you more details there. I have this site that this awesome company Spore built for me called Espree.club. And so if you want to see where all my upcoming Clubhouse rooms are, just go to Espree.club and you can see my events on Clubhouse.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm just down to be supportive of your journey. As many people as I could empower to help elevate other people, like that's the jam.
I just love that. I think, one thing that I really took away from what you were saying throughout this whole interview is that you have such a deep level of leadership. And, I look at leaders, really strong, wonderful leaders, as people who want to empower others to do well, right? And I just love how, you spoke about that, but that's such an important quality in who you are. And I've seen it over and over and over and over again. It's definitely who you are. And so I just love that you're leading this beautiful cause in LA and around the world. I mean, ultimately you're reaching people all over the world. And so it's just great.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys having me on. It's been a wild experience to be a podcaster. And I appreciate all that you do. I mean, it takes one to know one, eh?
I don't know.
I like the A too. Nice.
Oh boy. Well, we'll end it there. And so thanks again. And we'll be in touch.
Yay to podcast number 1.
Yay.